Hi all. So we've already talked about writing relations as inverses, and now we're going to talk about writing functions as inverses when you're given your function written as an equation. All right, and so it only takes 4 steps to do this. Step 1, rewrite f of x as y. Step 2, switch the x and the y values. Step 3, we're going to solve for y. And step 4, rewrite y as the inverse of f of x. Okay, now let's do some examples. I'm just going to move this up so that we have enough room to get the whole problems in, but still see the steps. All right, so let's look at this first one on the left here. F of x equals negative x minus 7. Well, step 1, that's super easy. We're just going to replace the f of x with y, so y equals negative x minus 7. Step 2 then tells me we have to switch the x and the y, so I'm going to rewrite it as x equals negative y minus 7. And notice how I didn't move the negative sign with the x, okay? I left it exactly where it was because the only thing that switches is the x and y. Step 3, we're going to solve this equation, so add the 7 to both sides. So I have x plus 7 equals negative y. Well, I don't want to know what negative y is. I want to know what y is. So we have to divide everything by negative 1. And I have negative x minus 7 equals y. But we're not done because we need to get step 4 in there, which just says we got to rewrite it to say the inverse of f of x equals negative x minus 7. All right, let's look at number 2. It's a little different because now I've got a fraction in there. We're going to follow the steps just the same. So step 1, we're just going to replace the f of x with y. So y equals 5 halves x plus 4. Step 2 says switch the x and the y. So x equals 5 halves x plus 4. Step 3 is where we start solving for y, so let's subtract 4 from both sides. So we have x minus 4 equals 5 halves x. All right, so now 5 halves x, that's multiplication. How do I undo multiplication? With division. So I have to divide by 5 halves, which is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. So here, those things cancel out. What should do to the right, we've got to do to the left. So I'm multiplying by the reciprocal, 2/5. So here we go. And now I'm just going to distribute. So I have 2/5 x minus big times the top is 8 divided by the bottom. Well, I can't divide, so it's just minus 8 over 5 equals y. Oh, guys, these should say y's up here. Okay, equals y. And then the last step we need to do is we need to write it as the inverse of f of x equals 2/5 x minus 8 over 5. All right, let's look at the last one. And the one on the right here is a little different because it's not linear. I have a cubic function. So we have f of x equals x plus 6 cubed. The first thing though, no matter what, we're just going to rewrite it with a y. So y equals x plus 6 cubed. Then the next thing we're going to do, same as what we've been doing, we're just going to switch the x and the y. So x equals y plus 6 cubed. Now we need to solve for y. Well, looking at this, when I'm solving for y, I have to get rid of this cubed. Well, how do I undo cubing? That's right, with a cube root. So a cube and a cube root undo each other. What I do to the right side, I need to do to the left side. So now I have the cube root of x equals y plus 6. Well, I've got to get rid of that 6, so let's subtract 6 from both sides. So now I have the cube root of x minus 6 equals y. And be careful, see how I wrote the minus 6 not under the radical? That's really important. And the very last thing we need to do is just rewrite it with the inverse of f of x equals the cube root of x minus 6. All right, now you're going to do some problems on your own, guys.